My drinking career in the service was something else because it was like I can remember times when I was on guard duty and it was nothing for our canteens to be full. Well, my canteen to be full with some form of alcohol. I proceeded to work on that job, and it got to the point on that job to where the only way I could make it to work and just deal with the people there at work, I had to have me a little something on the way to work, which usually ended up being about a half pint or a pint of vodka and orange juice. Like they couldn't smell the vodka on my breath.
This is The Bottom Line. I'm Gary Thiemann in Los Angeles. One of the biggest dilemmas the alcoholic faces is denial. But once the alcoholic faces the problem head on, admitting he is an alcoholic and that presently his circumstances dictate that his life is unmanageable, he has a shot at recovery.
Hello, my name is Barry, and I'm an alcoholic. I started drinking in my first drunk was in 1977. I had just got out of high school and gotten away from my home life as I knew it. And I moved from Texas, by the way. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I started drinking as simply enough with just beer. Then I was introduced to other mind-altering chemicals in my life. The party started, and it didn't end for a few years later. You know, it was like it gotten to the point where I was drinking and getting loaded with drugs on a regular daily basis. To the point to where I tore up 3 cars in the process. You know, it was very normal for me to drink and use and drive and drink, and it was an everyday occurrence. You know, and through the years I continued on, and to the point where I tore up, like I said, I moved to Dallas. I tore up 3 cars, and to get away from the pursuit of the legal system, I joined the military. And that was the real beginning of of my drinking career, because in the service they made it real comfortable for their boys in under arms to drink, because you could get beer and alcohol at relatively little to nothing. And my drinking career in the service was something else, because it was like I can remember times when I was on guard duty and it was nothing for our canteens to be full. Well, my canteen to be full with some form of alcohol. You know, I used the excuse that I had to have some kind of antifreeze in my system to keep from freezing out there. And it was nothing, you know, it's like, that reminds me of one of the stories when we were on guard duty. You know, it happened to be our day off. And me and a few of my compatriots decided we were going to go into town and do some serious partying. But in order to do some serious partying in town, we had to get warmed up here in our barracks. So needless to say, I drank about a case and a half of beer, and followed that with a half a pint or 2. I can't remember the exact number of some alcohol. So we proceeded to go into town, and after drinking that amount of alcohol in my system, my body said it couldn't take anymore and it needed to relieve itself. So needless to say, I didn't want to mess up my friend's truck, so I opened the door and decided to relieve myself outside the door. Which was something in itself, because we were going down a freeway at 55 miles an hour. So needless to say, I tumbled, and the next thing I remember looking up at the underside of a car, looking at the fan running and the motor just sitting there running, and I heard brakes squeal, and I got up and I looked at the person driving and asked him what was wrong with him. So needless to say, I got out of the service after 3 years and still drinking and still using, I decided to go home to mom's. And my mindset was to party for about a year and draw unemployment. So I proceeded to go home, drop my bags in the front door, and continue to party. You know, it was real nice of the government to give me a nice little lump sum when they discharged me. And I proceeded to spend that money fairly quickly. You know, money really didn't mean nothing to me then. It was like, it was just another means to get what I needed to get out of reality. So I went through that money in about 2 weeks' time, and it was like my mother had gotten to the point where she was fed up with the inconsistencies of my life and said I needed to get a job. And I really wasn't thinking about getting a job at the time, so it was like I played it off and I got newspapers and faked it like I was looking for a job. But while I was looking through the want ads, of course I had to have some alcohol to just thumb through the pages. Being that my mother was the type of woman that she was, she saw I wasn't getting any headway. She decided to get a job for me, and it was due because I needed some money. Because you just can't steal everything, you know. And I decided to go ahead and get this job that my mother had lined up for me, and I proceeded to work on that job, and it got to the point on that job to where the only way I could make it to work and just deal with the people there at work, I had to have me a little something on the way to work, which usually ended up being about a half pint or a pint of vodka and orange juice. Like they couldn't smell the vodka on my breath. So needless to say, I continued on drinking and using like that, and it got to the point where I met a friend, and him and his wife decided that he had a drinking problem, and me and him partied real well together. So it was like I was upset when he told me he was going to stop drinking because of what his wife wanted him to do. So I continued on for about 3 weeks, and I started noticing in him a change. I started noticing that he was clearing, his eyes was clearing up, and it was like I had gotten to that point in my drinking career to where it was like the alcohol and the drugs just weren't doing it for me. It was no matter what amounts I drank or what amount of drugs I used, it was like my problems were still there. The headaches, the aggravations were even getting worse. It had gotten to the point where I didn't care about my appearance or what other people thought of me. I didn't even care about what I thought about. And then I saw his change in his life, and I had gotten to the point where I was no longer willing to take on the things that was necessary to continue living life the way I was living. So I asked him what he did. And at that time he said he was going to this outpatient clinic where they were helping people to get off of the addiction of alcohol and drugs. So after another week or so, I said, well, heck, I'm tired of this, and I need something or someone to help me to relieve myself of this problem. So I made an appointment to see this counselor that he had introduced me to, and I saw him, and he sat me down in the rooms and explained to me how we do this thing one day at a time, and no matter what, we don't pick up that drink and we don't use any drugs. And they introduced me to the 12-step programs. And that was January the 8th, 1985. And I haven't found it necessary to do the programs 12-step programs and Alcoholics Anonymous, and God of my understanding, I haven't found it necessary to pick up another drink or use another drug. Not saying my life has been a bed of roses since then, but it's far, far better cry than what it used to be like.
Not every alcoholic is fortunate enough to hook up with someone who's on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But Barry J. got the chance to see a friend change literally before his eyes.
Since coming into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and going to the other 12-step programs, my life started getting better. I started to care about my appearance. I started to want a few things. Being a full-blooded American male, I wanted to have the wife, the family, the house, the picket fence. And it gotten to the point where after my first year, it's like I said, okay, I'm going to start looking for that wife, and I'm going to start building that family and start getting ready for that house. If I haven't learned one thing, I've learned this in the program, is be careful what you pray for, because God will give it to you. I prayed for that wife and that child, and 18 months later, I had a wife, I had a child, and I had a full family. And I forgot to ask God for the instructions, on how to be a good husband, how to be a good father, and to be the person that He wanted me to be. I'd gotten away from the principles of what the program is all about, and I started to do things once again Barry's way. And 18 months after me and my wife were married, we were divorced. I became a single parent. I didn't know which way to turn, so it was like once again my back was to the wall, and I said that prayer. I said, God, help me through this, and I went back to that mother and asked her to help me raise this child and give us a roof over our head, and the best thing that ever could come out of her mouth was no. And that made me go back to the person that I really needed to talk to, and that was God. The two true things that I'm really grateful for from the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is introducing me to the 12 steps and introducing me to a God of my own understanding. The God that I grew up with was a punishing God, but the God I have now in the program is a forgiving God and a loving God and an understanding God. And He gives me the strength to wake up every day and to go forward and see each day as a new experience. After losing that wife and becoming a single parent, I was employed by this company, and I didn't do a lot of things exactly by the book. And after 11 and a half years on that job, God saw fit to cut me loose to that job, and I became jobless. A month later, I became homeless, and I didn't know which way to turn. And like I said, what the cause of all of that was, once again, Barry had turned his back away from God and gotten away from the principles of what got him to the point where he knew that God was everything, and I thought Barry was doing it. So God had to get my attention one more time, and since that point, it's like I lost my job, I lost my home, and God intervened in my life one more time, and He said, okay, Barry, I got your attention this time. What are you going to do with it? So I got on my knees one more time, and I said, okay, God, you're in control. You guide me in the direction that you want me to go in, and since that time, it's like I moved up here to the valley, Antelope Valley area, and I moved in with a brother that 6 months prior to moving up here, me and him was at each other's throats. And it was like he opened his door to me and my daughter, and since coming to Antelope Valley, it's like I just recently, after about a 13-month period of time, I recently rejoined the workforce and got me a job, and I'm self-supporting once again by the grace of God and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because during that time period to where I was unemployed and I really didn't know which way to go, I kept going to meetings and I kept staying in touch with other sober members of the program, and I mostly kept in touch with the God of my understanding. And through it all, I can say this to anyone that's listening to this, that if you have a problem with your drinking, or if you're using and you really are tired of that life that you're living, that the programs, the 12-step programs have a lot to offer. The bottom line of it all is it's a spiritual program, and that they don't try to force any form of religion down anyone's throat. They let you walk into the doors and they let you come in and they let you sit down and you listen to other alcoholics and addicts tell you how they live life one day at a time with the 12 steps and the God of their own understanding.
You've been listening to The Bottom Line, featuring Barry's story, another miracle story of a once practicing alcoholic now in recovery, one day at a time. Hey, thanks, Bear, for being of service. This show is produced for Armed Forces Radio Worldwide. I'm Gary Thiemann. Until next time, God bless you, and share the message, won't you? This has been a GRT production.